was growing up, I heard lots of stories about a man named Rubin. He was a really good friend of my dad's family. And now, after 18 long years, I finally got to meet him. That's Jay, the guy in the Steelers sweatshirt.
I'm an attorney in Indiana, Pennsylvania. I'm the president of our synagogue, Beth Israel. I'm a bachelor. I've never been married, never had children. I'm still happy. And I'm very active in my community, and I've been practicing law for almost 40 years. I was born and raised in Indiana. There were 2 years when I was in Washington, D.C. working for the United States Customs Service, but other than that, I've been in Indiana. I went to the University of Pittsburgh for the last 2 years of undergrad and for law school.
But that's not all to Jay. He is a huge movie buff, especially when it comes to Jimmy Stewart. He's met Jimmy Stewart, and he also has received personal memorabilia from the Stewart family. He also helped found the Jimmy Stewart Museum, which is in Indiana, Pennsylvania. Jay Rubin and Jimmy Stewart's hometown. But I was there to learn about cooking and the memories that went with it.
I have lots of memories from growing up. Well, probably the great stories about growing up in this household is my grandmother on my mother's side lived here, and she was the consummate baker. And nobody ever made an apple pie as good as she did, and she made the most outstanding rogalach you ever want to eat. And she made a lot of other things that were great. And when you asked her for a recipe, she was the typical grandmother who liked to be a little nasty on occasion. So she'd give you the recipe minus one thing and never would tell you what that was. So if you ever asked her for a recipe, it would never come out as good as she made it. So we had to always beg her to make something so we had it the way it was supposed to be.
Luckily for me, I wasn't cooking with Grandma. Jay left out no details when it came to making Matzah Brei, a traditional dish for Passover.
Matzah Brei is a very easy thing to learn, and you'll be able to do it. As soon as you're done with our lesson, you'll be able to do it in a snap. And there's a lot of varieties to it that you can play with. When it's made, some people like it with sour cream. Some people like it with horseradish. Some people like it with applesauce. And some people like it with sugar and cinnamon. So I've got all for you can try.
What's your favorite way of having it?
What?
What's your favorite
Sour
way?
cream.
Sour cream.
Also, depending on how kosher you keep, because obviously it's usually cooked with a dairy meal, so that you can use butters, you can use sour cream, you can use things like that. But if you get to the point where you aren't keeping kosher, you want to make it, and you don't keep a kosher home, you could do things with some meat things with it as well. What a lot of people like to do when they make their matzah brei, I don't, because I like it pretty simple. It's what you dip it in that's important to me. But some people will fry up mushrooms and onions, and it's almost like making an omelet or making scrambled eggs. You can put anything in you want when it's frying, but the end result is getting it nice and crisp and very tasty.
Jay also gave me a quick little Jewish history and culture lesson, all on matzah.
It becomes a staple at Passover because you know the story of matzah. It's the unleavened bread that the Israelites coming out of Egypt had to, they had no time to let it rise, so that it became flatbread, which became the matzah, which is what is a staple. And in the Torah it says that at least for the first Seder, everybody must eat matzah. After that, it's as you want it, but it's become a staple because you make matzah meal, you have all your cakes, your goodies, everything's made with matzah meal because you can't use unleavened bread. So, for that reason, or no yeast or anything of that nature. So, it's become a staple, and matzah brei is kind of like a delicacy that you live on a little bit during Passover because it's easy, it's delicious, and after you get your fill of Passover, you probably don't eat it again for a whole nother year because you've had your fill of it.
After our chat in the living room, it was off to the kitchen for the main event, cooking matzah brei. The first rule of cooking in a new space is figuring out where everything is, especially when you're dealing with Jewish cooking.
And when I close it, I need meat, I'll pull out the same drawer and I'll take the same fork. I don't keep kosher. Except during Passover, right?
So why just keep kosher for Passover?
That's the way I was raised. Family tradition. It's nice to keep family traditions.
Yeah.
Keeps you in touch with your roots. You want to get it wet.
Okay.
Get it moist. You don't want to get it soggy. You get a pretty good feel for how it should be. And then we just take and put it in the bowl. You want to try some of this?
Some of the wet matzah?
No, some of the playing with it.
I'll do whatever you want me to do.
Go ahead. Put the eggs in.
Alright.
Did you wash your hands?
Before I came here, yes.
Okay. Now, start playing.
Alright.
Just get it really soaked and covered. You don't think it's enough, I can put another egg. That's good.
One way to test it.
Now, you gotta stand back. When it starts hitting, oil flies everywhere. Since this is so much, I'll make it in 2 bags.
The Matzah Brei was so delicious and very easy to make. This is like, I can make this in my dorm room, which is really exciting. As we sat around eating, I listened to Jay make jokes and tell lots of different stories, like this one.
Paul Muni, the famous actor, used to tell a story. If you're familiar with geography, there's a corridor called the Polish corridor. It used to be, sometimes it's Russia, sometimes it's Poland. So he ran home one day to his grandfather and said, Grandpa, we're no longer Russia, we're back to being Poland. And he said, thank God I couldn't take another Russian winter.
What I liked most about our table conversation was Jay reminiscing and reconnecting with my dad, who he hadn't seen in over 20 years. It was really nice to finally put a face with a name. Jay Rubin has been the talk of my grandfather for years, and I never knew who he was. Jay's funny, kind, intelligent, and a really good cook. I learned a lot from Jay, and not just how to cook Matzah Brei. I learned history, movie trivia, and what the inside of a retro kitchen looks like. If there's one thing I learned while taking Jews and food, it is that food is a way of passing down family history, tradition, and culture. Since Jay doesn't have anyone left to pass down his traditions and stories to, I'm glad I got to come and cook with him, because now I can do that. I can pass down the story of how the Polish-Russian Jew and the Roman Catholic from a coal mining town became friends. And then one day, the Jew taught a Protestant girl from Dickinson College how to make Matzah Brei. Now that is an interesting story.